another class of communicative English, and in today's class we are going to discuss about data collection. We all know, or we have studied in the previous classes, that report writing is dealt, or whenever we talk about the proposal writing, as discussed, it requires information, it requires data to be collected. And when we talk about the data, when we talk about the information or collection of data, the data is collected from the different sources. We need to identify what are the various sources from which the data can be collected. Now, in order to understand, in order to make you people know more about data collection, let us understand about the ways, the sources through which you can collect the data. Now, the data that you are going to collect will be furnished either in the form of report, either in the form of proposal, either in the form of presentation, either in the form of documentation. So the purposes could be varied, but when we talk about collection of data, primarily they will be from two different sources. When we talk about the sources, they are broadly classified into two, that is primary and secondary. As we all know, the word primary means something which is first hand, the information or the sources that we get or the information that we collect from the very first hand, from right from the people, right from the object, or right from the person, or right from the sources directly without any indirect approach. That is called as primary source. So when we are talking about the primary sources, please remember that it is first hand information right from the right person, so that there is no delay. When we talk about secondaries, the word itself says that it is seconded, that is, it is through some other sources. So we can rely upon this information, but at the same time, we have to identify whenever we are collecting the information from the secondary sources, we have to check its authenticity. Whereas when we talk about the primary sources, authenticity is 100% verified because you are getting the information directly from the person, directly from the resource personnel. So therefore, you should always, you can always say that it is properly authenticated. Whereas when we talk about the secondary sources, the information need to have a proper check. You need to really check whether the information that is furnished is reliable or not, whether it is relevant or not, whether it is a true one or not. Sometimes it may happen that the information that is uploaded or the information that is shared, the information that is furnished may not be a right one, or probably there is a false statement, or the information that is represented is a flabbergasted one. So therefore, we have to really look into the authenticity. We have to check whether the information that is furnished is proper or improper one. So let us understand about the primary sources. As I have already said, you go to get the information directly from the sources. So therefore, it is called as primary. Now, when we are gathering information through primary sources, of course, it will be time taking because you have to approach each and everybody. It will be highly cost. If like you have to bear a lots of cost. It cannot be cost effective. The reason why it can't be cost effective, because you have to travel a lot, you have to take the appointment, you have to find the relevant sources from where you have to gather the information. So the cost is really going to soar high when compared to the secondary sources. In secondary sources, the cost will be very effective, whereas even the time consumption will be too effective in comparison to the primary sources. But when we talk about the data, when we check about the authenticity of the data, of course, primary data is always the best when compared to secondary. Now, when we are talking about the primary sources, what are the ways in which the data could be collected? The data could be collected from in three different ways. One, it could be through questionnaire. Two, it could be by conducting the interview process. And third, by observation. When we talk about questionnaire, as the word itself says, it's a set of questions. There are certain number of questions which are asked or which are shared in the form of a template, which can be either emailed. You can send this questionnaire to a huge number of people through email so that they can reply accordingly. You can gather the information. Other than sharing the email, the other way of collecting the information is asking questions directly and then collecting or gathering the information and compiling the data. As I said, this is a time-taking process. You have to keep your resources in a proper way, otherwise you may miss the sources. So therefore, protecting the resources, saving and filing them again becomes a tedious task. So you have to always have a proper understanding which source to follow. Are you going to collect the data through primary sources or secondary sources? If the data that is to be collected is primary, then it could be questionnaire, it could be through interviews, it could be through observation. When we talk about questionnaire, as stated, questionnaires can be emailed or questionnaires can be asked. The questions can be asked and the responses can be taken directly. Storing and filing are major issues, and you have to be very protective. You have to be very accountable while collecting the data and storing the data in a right way. Then comes the next, interviews. Now, the interviews which we conduct could be structured or unstructured. When we say structured, this means every respondent, the person to whom you are going to ask questions, each and everybody will be answering their answers, but the questions will remain same under the segment structured interview. Whenever we talk about the structured interview, keep this in your mind that when we conduct a structured interview, the set of questions will remain same. Whereas when we talk about unstructured interview, the questions will vary. There will be different questions that you can ask to the different respondent or to the different applicants or to the different candidate. So conducting interview, again, it's a time-taking process. You may have to have a video record. You may have to keep all the records of the answers that you are collecting. In case if you miss any of the data, in case if you miss any of the records, your time is not only going to waste, but at the same time, you have also killed the precious time of the person whosoever was responding to your question. So therefore, you need to be very accountable. You have to be very calculative while conducting the interview process. Identify what are the set of questions that you want to ask. Should it be structured or should it be unstructured? Can we have a combination of both? That is, a few questions which are structured, which could be asked to everyone, and then a few of them which are unstructured, wherein you ask different questions to the different candidate to get their personal opinion and to understand how do they respond to your questions. And the third is observation. When we talk about observation here, you can directly participate or you can even observe by non-participating. Now, let me give you an example. When you watch a match, India versus Australia, how do you feel? You feel excited, isn't it? When India loses, you feel dejected. Why? Because though you were not playing, your participation is there. You know that it is Indian team, it is your nation which is playing against Australia, and you have the same kind of enthusiasm and joy as exactly that runs in the team of Indian cricket. So therefore, we should understand that through participation also we can observe, and even sometimes by non-participating. When you are playing in the game, it's a direct participation. But when you are just observing, it is a non-participation. Many a times in the class, teachers do conduct group discussion, teachers do conduct interview process, teachers do conduct simulation activities. When they organize activities, when they organize the group discussion, it may happen that it is not you who is speaking, but you have all the emotions connected and attached with the person whosoever is speaking exactly the same thing that you wanted to convey. Though you are non-participating, but still you will show your 100% participation by your body language or even by agreeing or disagreeing, isn't it? So this is a kind of non-participation. So through observation also we can identify lot many things. We can collect the information, we can gather the information, and these would be considered as primary sources. As I have said, I repeat, it's a time consuming process. It is not at all cost effective. You have to spend lots of cost, you have to spend lots of time, you have to have lots of patience, and you have to be very accountable in gathering the data, in filing the data, in storing the data. Once if it is lost, your complete effort will go in vain. And even the respondents, like time would be wasted. So therefore, you should be very accountable in order to keep the data, as these are very authentic. You have to have a proper understanding how to store the data, how to compile the data, and how to estimate the data. The next kind of sources is the secondary source. When we talk about secondary sources are those kind of sources wherein we gather the information from other end through other sources, like it could be website, It could be books, it could be journal, it could be like biographies, it could be autobiography, it could be from other archives. So whenever there is an information, that information, if it is already stored either on the website, either on in the form of book, either in the form of journal, either in the form of documents, if you collect the information from those documents, from those websites, from those journals, then such kind of sources are called as secondary. As I have already stated, it is tough to identify whether the sources are relevant or irrelevant. You have to be very judgmental. You have to check its authenticity, how much to rely upon secondary sources, whether to test it or not. That everything depends on your understanding. So be very calculative while using these secondary sources. Of course, it is easy to gather secondary sources when compared to primary. It is again cost effective. It saves your time, and at the same time, you can gather the information. And once if it is lost, you can once again get it. You can always retrieve it. Whereas primary sources, if the data that you have collected, if it is lost, you cannot retrieve the same. So keep these things in your mind, that whenever we talk about any project, any report, any proposal, or any presentation that you want to give, even if we talk about a business plan presentation wherein you have to gather the information and collect the data would be collected only in these two forms. Of course, the representation of the data can be in different ways. It could be quantitative and qualitative. So when you are presenting the information with the help of table, charts, pies, or histogram, we call it as quantitative. And when you are using the words and when you are using paragraph in order to represent your thoughts and activities, that would be considered as qualitative. So qualitative and quantitative, a combination of both would be applied whenever you are presenting the report, whenever you are preparing your proposal, whenever you are drafting your presentation. And it is always considered good if you are having a balance of both the methodologies. But yes, data collection should be taken care. You cannot have hypothetical information, as this was stated even when explaining about the data and the information that we collect and present in the report, or even in the form of proposal. We need to have evidences and proof. So having a right set of data can help us reach up to the conclusion or even propose the solution to the given problem in a right way. All right. So that's all in today's class, where in today's class we discussed about data collection. I repeat, data could be collected from the different sources, but you have to be very cautious to know and identify what to put in your report, what to present in your proposal, and how to present it in a logical manner. Thank you very much for attending today's class. See you all in the next class with another topic. Till then, take care of yourself.